Okay, so I've noticed that the audio on my camera here is failing, so I'm picking up the audio. It's only mono from here. It should be okay, but I've got a new mic ordered that should come tomorrow, so that should improve the audio quality quite substantially. So this is the Armatin frame, and comes with a nice set of instructions, relatively simple, and as you can see, what they tend to do is ask you to put together the camera cage first, and then the base plate, then the top parts of the plate, and then the rest. And so what I'll do is I'll assemble it as far as this part here, step 3, so base plate with probably with the camera cage attached, and then start figuring out where the various pieces are going to go. The camera cage looks pretty much identical to the Marmot. We'll have a look at that. These are the nice thing about the Armatin. These are titanium pieces, so very, very strong. And this is, yes, you can see that is identical to the Marmot in terms of size. So that's basically the same cage, and my DJI, you can see that I'm sure I'm going to have to do the same thing here. There's a couple of TPU printed mounts, because what happens is they created this original cage for wider cameras that nobody makes anymore, and so actually to get the narrower cameras to fit, you have to put in these little TPU mounts. Now these ones someone else printed last time, so I will have a go at printing these myself. We'll see how that goes, but without those you can't get the spacing correct for the mounts. And what you'll find as well is a little carbon fibre top plate here, which you can use to put like a GoPro or something on top. I used to put the GPS and compass on there, but what I found is that you just get too much interference from the camera for the GPS, and too much shadowing from the shape of the battery for the GPS as well. Whereas if you mount it at the back, it's got a much clearer sight. So what I'll do is I'll assemble these together. I'll dry assemble them for now. I will use some Loctite with the screws eventually, just to hold it all together. But for now I'll just dry assemble the bits and make sure I get them the right way around. Okay, so I've got the various bits out. I was hoping that the screws would come in nicely packaged sections for each piece that I'm going to build, but that's not the case. They're all mixed up together, so I basically just unpacked them all and emptied them in here. And for the cage, I need 4 M3x4mm, 2 M3x8mm, and 2 M2x5mm. And the easiest way to tell apart the different lengths of the M3s is just to put them side by side. So in this kit, there's 16mm M3, 10, which is that one, 8, which is that one, 6, which is that one, and 4, which is that one. So all different sizes. So I need 4 of these 4mm, and then 2 of these 8mm. I don't need those for now. The M2s are easy to spot, and then these M2 washers are easy to spot. And then the camera cage goes, to just be a little bit careful to get this the right way round. So you can see that there's a sort of inside and an outside, and it looks like the inside of the camera cage is the flat side and the outside is the rounded side. And then there's this a 23mm standoff, which I think is probably going to be this one. I want to say I think these are going to be for elsewhere. So we shall see. So I'm going to put the 8mm in here, and then you have the mounting here going back that way, and the standoff here. And this little thing, there's a little, you can see on the inside there's a bit of a cutout so that it fits properly. And so that's that side, and then this side, similar thing. Cutout is there, that's facing backwards like that. That goes there. And somehow here I've got some hex keys. So in the past, my Matten frames used to come with hex keys, but that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. So I guess you've got to provide your own hex keys now. So or Allen keys, as we call them in the UK. So that's that. That's there. That's there. And then you should find that this matches up with this quite well. The base plate, so you can see that that's, so I've got the right width there, that's where the base plate matches up. And so you can see these are really quite far apart, and I think that will take a very, very large camera, which is not what I've got. So if we actually get the camera out, there you go. I've used this for testing in the past, which is why it's all wired up. You'll see that there's quite a big, even with these two screws, there's quite a big gap there, and too big a gap for these little washers, so it's just too big. So I'm not really sure, this is DJI edition, I'm not really sure what DJI camera they think is actually going to fit in here. So basically, well, actually the nice thing about this is it's got two screws there, and that looks like it'll fit. So that what the problem last time was that it wasn't far enough forward. I think that may still be the case. So you can see there's two screws fit there, and because of where the lens is, it's set too far back from the cage, and what you find is then that you can see the cage in your FPV shot, and that's not what you want. So if you look at this one, you can see that the camera is right up at the edge of the cage, so the field of view is unobstructed by the cage. Whereas this one, if I wire it all together like that, you can see there's, it's like 5+ mil there. You're just going to get a big big fat cage in your face, which is not what you want. So you want this kept forward, and that requires this extra mounting. Now I'm going to have to try and find a mounting that fits this, because it looks slightly different, so we'll have to see. and just it narrows it, brings it a little bit forward so that the camera fits properly. The other thing to notice is with these mountings, it's quite hard to get the camera in there once you've got the thing assembled, and so it's worthwhile trying to get these pieces all done and dusted properly before you start assembling all the rest of it. Okay, we're back. So I now have my Blue Yeti microphone. Ta-da. So hopefully, just pop that back there. Hopefully the audio quality is a lot better now. I don't need this mic here. So a couple of bits of good news. So first off, I spent a fair while searching for camera mounts for the walk snail and trying 3D printing them, and none of them worked particularly well. And then what I discovered was that actually the mount comes with these little M2 washers. A bit difficult to see there, but I think I can probably just sort of take this apart. Take that side off. And so there's these M2 nuts, bolts here, and then it comes with two little M2 washers that you can use to space off, I guess, a camera of a different size. But what I found with these is that actually if you use two of them each side, the spacing is not horrendous. It's not quite perfect. There's a little bit of flex you can see in there, but it's not too bad. And the other great thing is that you can, with this sort of camera mount, there's a little bit of flex in it. And if you flex it forward like that, and then put the camera as far forward as you can in this mounting bit, the position is actually not too bad. In fact, it might even be over. I think in a crash I might suffer there. So what I might do is set that back a little bit, just loosen those. So what I did was I just kind of verified, I fired up Walk Snail and just verified that there was no that you couldn't see the camera cage in the goggles, and you couldn't. It was brilliant. So I'm actually, there's a bit of flex there as well. You can see these two screws give you a little bit of flex there. But the cage itself can be rotated as well. So I tend to just mount this so it's safe. So I think probably at the back is going to be the safest. And then these two washers I've got, I can tighten up against those. And then this one I can tighten up a little bit just to give it a little bit more solidity. And then do the same here. Can just loosen those a little bit. Push it forward. Tighten up against that. And that. And then pop this back on. And that gives a camera that is nicely mounted just right at the front of the cage without the cage appearing in the field of view. And I think if you look at this one, you can see it's similar. You can see it's just behind the front of the cage. I don't know if you can see that, which gives a nice field of view. But without the need for any extra mounts, so that's perfect. So I'm really pleased with that. I'm not sure whether that was by design, because I think this is the same cage as the other one, so it just happens to fit the Cadex well, where it doesn't really fit the DJI that well. But anyway, it seems to work well, and there's enough strength there and enough bits in the box to get that working well. So I'm pleased with that, and actually it's easier to really mount the camera almost from the get-go. So I'll probably leave the camera in there. It's quite hard to mount the camera after the fact. It's a little bit fiddly with the screws and things. And then the other great news is that this Matec, although it says 42688 and 42605, when I actually padded up it's two 42688s, which is actually what I want, so I think that's good. So now what remains to be done is assemble the rest. So obviously I talked about this top plate here. It requires these little 4mm M3 screws, which go on nicely. I'll probably put some Loctite on those a bit later. And then this one, that gives a nice bit of rigidity. So that's the camera cage done. And then the next bit is to put the base plate and arms together. So we've got 4 arms. I think they're pretty much identical. If I just scissors, pop those out. See, our mountain just have a lot of attention to detail, so you can see they've got the nice smoothed edges, and these are basically identical. So I think all of the arms are the same. There's no, the screws mount from the bottom, so there's no inset there. So those are the same. And then the other interesting thing is this is a really thick base plate, so the arms are, well, the arms and the base plate are the same. I want to say the arms are slightly thinner, but if you compare, this is a really strong frame, this one. So the arms are, I think, the same thickness as this, I want to say. But the base plate is definitely a little bit thicker. So I can't remember this is, I think this is 4mm carbon. This might be sort of 4.5mm. Whatever. There's no way on earth that base plate is going to break. Arms maybe, but the base plate not. And so you can see that these go together with the little screws in the top and the arms on the top there. So these little offset screws here which go in these holes here, and then I think these are all the same. And then, well, then you screw up underneath with, I think these are 10mm screws. I think this might be a 10mm. So 10mm. So if it's 10mm, this must be can't be 5mm carbon because it has to go all the way through, so it must be 4mm carbon. So those go up and screw in the bottom there, like that. So I shall do that now. So I've got 4 screws here, 4 screws here, 4 nuts, 4 nuts, and assemble the base plate like that. Okay, I've done 7 of these. These were actually quite hard to put in, these countersunk nuts. So I'll just show you what I did, just in case it helps. So you can see there's a little recess in the carbon fibre here, and the sort of edges of the nut need to go in that recess, and it's a very tight fit. So what I tended to do was get it approximately in place, push it just a little bit down so it holds. So it holds in place. You're never going to get it in like that. You could try hitting it with a hammer, but I think that's probably likely to end up damaging things, but you're welcome to try. So I've actually got a clamp here, and the nice thing about this is that I can basically wind it in with pretty even pressure. And so what I've done is wound that on to the nut and then just apply a bit more pressure, and then it goes in reasonably easily. You can probably see that that's not 100% in, so I just need to apply a bit more pressure. Sometimes I've found doing it on both nuts at the same time sometimes works a bit better. I guess if you've got a metal vise, that would probably be even better, but I don't. I've got a vise, but it's got wooden pads on it for protecting woodwork, and that's just not going to be strong enough for this. So just push that on, and still not quite in there. You can see why it's quite hard work. You just got to keep trying until the thing is flush with the carbon fibre. That felt like it went in a bit more. Okay, that's pretty good. You can see it's just about flush with the carbon fibre. So I hope I got those right, because there's no way they're coming out again. I think that one's needs a little bit more, but anyway. And then I've got the 10mm nuts, and that just fits on. They fit on underneath, like so, through there, into there, like that, and then you can see same with the other ones. Oops, that's not quite in the right place, but that sort of thing. Brilliant. Okay, so I'll assemble those and we should have a base plate. Okay, just got the last arm to go here, so I'll show you what I do. So first off, I dry mount the arms, so put both screws, both bolts in where they're supposed to go, which is there, and then this one there. So that's got it in place. And then, because this, I never really want to undo these unless I break an arm, so I'm going to put some Loctite on these. So I'm using Loctite Threadlock Blue, which is 243, which is sort of, I think, medium strength. Just put sort of half a drop on there. Stick that one in, tighten it up, and of course you get a lot of vibration through the arms, and certainly I had a copter recently where the vibration had caused some of these bolts on a different frame to loosen slightly, and the arm was basically vibrating in its mount and causing all sorts of noise issues. The copter kept crashing basically because the motors were overheating because there was too much noise. It's just really interesting how fairly simple, small, what appeared to be small mechanical problems can actually make a big difference to flight performance. So take that one out. And the other nice thing about using Loctite is you don't have to, you obviously can do it quite tight, but you don't have to absolutely welly it up so that you're breaking the frame or the bolts or your hex key. So obviously I do those quite tight, but then the Loctite will hold them in place, stop them loosening afterwards. So that's good, and that is the frame, base plate. And you can see that compared to my Marmot, so I think that's the back, so very similar frame compared to the Marmot, but it is a 6-inch frame, so you can just see you got the extra ½ inch on each of the arms there. The arms are just slightly thinner here, so obviously your weak point's going to be there. So I suspect if anything breaks, it would be an arm at this point here. Obviously hope that doesn't happen, but that's one of the advantages of these unibody base plates, is it's got a lot of strength in this area. So the other one I've crashed multiple times, and the base plate is still completely fine even after pretty serious crashes. So that's the base plate. So the next part to put on is the camera mounting. So you can see these mount there, and then there's a bolt that goes through the bottom, probably 10mm again, 8mm actually it says. That mounts there as well. And then we've got 2 middle posts that they show going there, but obviously they could go either there or there, so it depends where things are going to be mounted. I will be mounting the ESC at the front here, so I do want the posts at the back, and then with the video transmitter all the way in the back there. And then we've got these final posts here, which go on the back there. You can see the camera cage will fit on there. So I shall put those all up. They all use 8mm M3s, so I'll use 6 8mm M3s. I will probably also use Loctite on these, on the bottom ones. I don't tend to use Loctite on the top ones, but on the bottom ones I tend to use Loctite, and on the motor bolts as well. So I'll put those all on. Okay, so I've got those bits on, and I've used Loctite, got the 8mm bolts in. So the first thing to check is that the camera cable is long enough. So I've had this problem in some builds where the camera cable is not actually long enough to mount at the back. So that's where the camera's going to go. This is the walk snail, and bags of room, so that's nice. That'll work well. And there's a piece of foam here that fits. It's really it's interesting, isn't it? It's really designed for, I think this is designed for the Marmot rather than the walk snail. It doesn't really, oh, maybe it fits, kind of fits there. I suppose it does fit there. Yeah, so there's a bit of foam there that'll go on top there, and then the walk snail will just glue down. There's a little bit of airflow at the bottom here. Now, slightly annoying thing is that on all my other marmots there's a piece of carbon fibre that goes across here, and that you can mount a RPSMA connection. That just means you can screw screw a regular antenna on the back there, and that has worked really well for me, and that's what I plan to do on this build. But they haven't supplied that bit. What they've supplied is these two little grommets, I think, because it's quotes the DJI edition, for the antenna to go up through the grommets. And I think the grommets fit. Yeah, you can see there's grommets fit on the back here. This is the frame. Sorry, the top plate would go in like this. But I don't want to do that. I've only got one antenna, and I want it to come out the back like the other ones. So I'm not sure what I'm probably going to have to cut a piece. I do have I'll search around in my bits, my box of bits, see if I've got a spare. I don't think I've got a spare, but you never know. I'll have a search around. And if not, I'm going to have to probably take one off of my marmot and cut a new bit, which is slightly frustrating, because I really don't want this. It's just not very strong sticking out through the grommets, so I have to figure that out. But in terms of building the frame, I'm not going to put the camera on just yet because we've got a fair amount of soldering to do, but that is the frame built. The next steps is really going to be the motor and ESC assembly. So the ESC is going to go at the front here, and I'll explain a bit more about that in the next video. But yeah, frame built, a bit missing, which is a bit of a pain. I'll have to figure out how I fix that. But thanks for watching.